Welcome, martial artists. Today we're going to be reviewing one of my favorite staff weapons forms, Northern Chi. It's interesting, I think, because it's a newer form, which shows that martial arts is continuing to evolve. It provides a lot of movement in the form, multiple combinations, particularly of strikes, which looks very interesting when presented. It's also a longer form, so you have a chance to perform a number of movements in multiple directions. And last but not least, it offers an opportunity to find your particular style and way of performing some of these moves. I think you'll find it a very good option if you're doing a competition or presentation. In order to get through this longer form, we're going to divide this video into several sections. First, we'll review again some of the basics of safety, grip, and some particulars of the moves with this form. I very much encourage you to review our longer safety and basics video as part of the Sushi no Koni bow form available through willowmartialarts.com. Next, I will present the form in its forward direction as you would see it in competition. We will then take and break down this form into each of its component moves and go through them slowly from multiple directions as necessary to try to assure that you get a full 360-degree view of each technique. And lastly, perform the form in all four directions, to the front, back, and both sides, so you can see the transitions most easily. I hope you'll enjoy this interesting form, Northern Chi no Kondai, and let's move ahead. The Northern Chi bow form from the front as you would present it in competition. Next, we're going to be reviewing the basics for the Northern Chi bow form. Please take time to review the safety precautions and the basics in the video Sushi no Koni bow form from Willow Martial Arts. We will not repeat all of that information in detail except to emphasize a few key points. The first area we want to review is the hand grip. As with the other bow form, we are gripping the bow in a standard position with our hands approximately 1/3 from each end. Right palm facing up, left palm facing down. Our index fingers and thumbs are together to make sure we have a full grip around the bow. This is very important for the safety of those around you. During this form, in almost all circumstances, we will be maintaining this grip. When we
will be releasing the grip, that will be specifically noted. Otherwise, you should not be changing the hand position on the bow. That being said, there is a different way to hold the bow in the Chinese tradition. These bow forms that we're dealing with are mainly in the Japanese and Korean tradition. And that is where the strikes and blocks are used with an extension of the bow, meaning that we change our hand grip, basically in a way where we bring our hands, and I'm going to turn to the side here to show this, instead of having them be approximately 1/3, as we are doing a strike, the back hand moves down towards the end of the bow, the front hand moves about to the mid part of the bow. This extends the range of the bow and makes it a more long distance weapon, of course. As we move to the other end, we simply change it back and forth. This, I would suggest, is a more advanced technique. I would strongly recommend that you get down the basics and the initial work with this form using the standard grip here. Secondly, we want to emphasize assuring that the palm is opposite the strike. There again, I'm going to move forward to demonstrate that. When we are hitting something, we want to make sure that the force is into the palm. If it's into our thumb and index finger, that is the weakest part of our grip. So as we bring it over for a strike, we turn over that hand so the palm is facing down. Just as we would with a punch, we're turning over our hand right at the end to deliver that power and keep a strong hand on the bow. Thirdly, we're using a slightly different stance and foundation for this form called a power front stance. It is very similar to our usual front stance in that we have one foot in front and one in back, but the stance itself is narrower and longer, with the back foot being at about a 45-degree angle to give us a good solid foundation to the back. The other new point that we're going to add in this form is using crane stances, of which there are two different types. These crane stances will be used both with an overhead block, but also with a thrust. And because of the movement and the mechanics of this, the crane stances are done in two different positions. The crane stance is simply lifting that right leg up so that we can make a big step forward and transfer our weight. When we're using an overhead block, that knee comes up straight in front as we would with a kick, and then we step down into that powerful front stance. However, if we're making a thrust as we're moving forward, that knee comes to the side so that we can twist and move that entire body as it steps forward into a thrust. Therefore, we'll talk about a crane stance with the knee pointing forward and a crane stance with the knee pointing to the side as we go through the form. Last but not least, in these basic moves that we need to discuss is the thrust. As you noticed, we take the bow, we bring it back as we did in our initial bow form, Tsushi no Koni. We bring our right hand back to our waist and we push it directly forward. We're twisting as we do that, again, so we can transfer that power. In this form, there are three different ways that one can thrust. For your initial time through the forms, and as you're learning, I would suggest continuing with that basic thrust. simply pulling the bow straight back, and as we're stepping forward, thrusting directly, we're looking for the upper chest, neck, and throat area. And that is simply, you will also see when this is performed a little different thrust, where the bow is brought up and pushed straight forward with the body. That is a second option, but it of course takes a little more time to bring the bow up and thrust. The third action is to do what's called a corkscrew. And I'm going to do this in this direction as you would see it as the attacker. If the attacker's bow is out and we are trying to move a thrust, the corkscrew comes around to the side and back through to the center. This corkscrew motion will move that bow just enough out of the way so that we can get to the target. So I will mention where that corkscrew maneuver may be used during the form. For those that are just learning the form, again, we want to emphasize, keep the 1/3 hand distance grip. Secondly, use that basic thrust forward. Once you become more advanced and want to experiment a little bit with the form in your own personal style, you may consider doing the Chinese change of hand maneuver and the other kinds of thrusts with bringing it up and in. We're all different martial artists, and we need to find what works best for us. Next, we'll be moving on to the individual steps involved with the bow form Northern Chi. Next, we're going to be reviewing the basic moves of the Northern Chi bow form. We're going to do 3 separate sections. First, we're going to review the initial moves to get from your bow in to your start position. Secondly, the repetitive sequence that we'll call the 7 sequence steps, which forms the basis of most of the form. And last but not least, we will go through step by step the individual parts of the form and show them from different directions so that hopefully you'll be able to get the full 360-degree view of each individual move before we finally go through in the next section and show the form from each direction. The first beginning that we do with this form is to get from our standard carrying stance into our start position, which is in each one of these forms with the bow in this position in front of us. Again, our hands in 1/3 grips. This is how we safely carry the bow around with us behind our right shoulder. Different than the first form, Sushi no Koni. In this circumstance, what we do is we first of all move that bow horizontally straight in front of us with our right arm extended. Palm is facing down. Our left hand comes across underneath the bow, palm up. We then rotate with our right hand horizontally, and then we twist vertically to come into position. Let me show that to you a little bit closer from the side. The first thing, We extend the right hand and bring the bow horizontal. The left hand comes underneath and grabs right next to our body, palm up. We then twist so our arms are crossed, and then circle them around to bring them to the front. One more time, a little closer. Horizontal, left hand comes under, right hand comes across, and then we twist vertically to bring the bow into beginning position. The next series we're going to do is called the 7 sequence. This is a series of 7 moves that we will do in part or completely repetitively throughout the bow form itself. When we're in that powerful front stance, typically we'll be coming off a thrust. The first thing we do is our left hand comes around to the front as our right hand comes up next to our body. I prefer to bring that bow to the outside of my arm. That stops it, and that also stops where the hit is. So if for some reason I miss my attacker, I'm not out of position. You will see other people bringing it underneath their arm. That is more complicated, number one, and secondly, it requires more time to do it. So this is a strike to the attacker's right side of the head that we're doing in that powerful front stance. We then reverse the bow for a chin strike. So right hand forward, left hand on top of the shoulder. We reverse it again vertically for a head strike. The left hand is coming back to the left side of the body. Then we do an overhead block, and then what we call a helicopter. Now let's show that helicopter. We're blocking here, and we rotate. Our left hand is going to come down underneath our right shoulder. So we're above, we're rotating it flat till about the front, and then our left hand comes down, and our right hand will guide the bow down to strike the neck and shoulder on the right side of the attacker. So it's overhead block. We begin to spin until roughly the bow is straight out in front of us, and then the left hand moves down into the armpit, and the right hand guides the bow down to the shoulder. This is what we call a helicopter spin. Then we reverse the hands for a chin strike, and then a head strike again. So let me show that from the side, because this is a sequence that will really get us through pretty much the entire form. So typically, it's after a thrust. Then we just bring the bow around horizontally to strike the right side of the attacker's head. The back part of the bow is against our shoulder. We reverse it vertically by bringing that right hand down and up for a chin strike. Reverse it the other way. The right hand comes down and over the top for a head strike as the left hand comes back to your side. Then we do an overhead block, that helicopter spin. Pull that left hand up for a chin strike as the right hand comes to the shoulder. And we do a head strike again. Right hand coming forward, guiding it as the left hand comes back down to your waist. Let me show it from the other direction. We've just finished our thrust. So that left hand comes forward to hit the attacker's right side of the head. We bring the right hand down and up for a chin strike. We reverse it again. Right hand comes over the top for a head strike. As the left hand comes back to the waist, we bring our overhead block. We do that helicopter by spinning horizontally until it's about straight in front. And then that left hand comes down into our armpit as our right hand brings that bow down to the attacker's right shoulder and neck. Our right hand comes down and up to do a chin strike, and the right hand goes over the top and down to do a head strike. And we're finished with that. So let me count those out. That's 1 to the side of the head, 2 to the chin, 3 to the head, 4 is an overhead block, 5, 6 is a chin strike, 7 is a head strike. So those are the two main things that are new in this form. It is the movement into our start position and the 7 sequencing of the strikes and blocks. Next, we'll be moving on to going through the form step by step. We're next moving through that step-by-step form, and I'm going to go through each individual step from as many directions as it seems necessary to assure you get a full view. We begin, of course, with the bow in by simply bringing the feet together and bowing and coming back to our basic Jumbi position. And then we move into the start of the form as we showed you initially. That is, first, bringing that right arm forward, holding that bow out horizontally. The left hand comes underneath, palm up. The right hand moves across the body, and then we switch our hands so that we're in our typical start position. The first move is going to be an overhead block with a crane position. As we mentioned, when we're overhead blocking, our knee will be pointing forward. This is always our right knee that is rising. So we're going to move by pushing firmly up to block an overhead strike. As we move into that crane stance, we're then going to step forward into that powerful front stance, a long, narrow front stance, as we do a head strike by bringing our left hand back to our left side of the waist, and our right hand guides us over into a head strike. Remember that palm is facing down. We're turning it over as we do that. The next thing we're going to do is what's called a drag step. And what we're going to do is our back foot shortens up, and as we do that, we pull that bow back to our waist, and then our front right foot steps forward as chest and neck. Let me show you that from the side as we begin. It's overhead crane stance, step forward into a powerful front stance as we do a head strike. We do a drag foot, pull that left back foot forward, and then our right foot steps forward as we thrust. So we're moving our whole body forward to give extra power in back of that thrust. So we've gone through this. Now we're going to do just the first 3 moves of the 7 sequence. Strike to the right side of the head, chin strike, head strike. We come back to the crane stance, but this time it's for a thrust. So now that crane stance, the foot goes to the side as we step forward into a powerful front stance and thrust. This gives our body the twist necessary to give a good power to this. We do a drag step and another thrust, drag step, another thrust. And then we do the full 7 sequence. Right head strike, chin strike, head strike, helicopter, chin strike, head strike. We then pull back into that crane stance, and this is the thrust that is sometimes used as a corkscrew, meaning it comes here, it comes around and then in to knock that bow out of the way and come in. So let's see that from the side. Overhead block, head strike, 3 sequence, crane stance, drag step, and then the 7 sequence. Right side of the head, chin, head, overhead block, helicopter, chin, head strike. Now we pull back into that side crane stance and do that thrust. From here, after we complete that thrust, we then, keeping our left foot in place, we bring our right foot back and go into a back stance. As our right hand moves to the center of the bow, and we move it out as a leg block in front of us. And let me show that to you from the side. So we have just finished that thrust. I'm going to move back a little bit so you can see my feet. And my right foot moves back. We're in a right back stance. My hand, which was about 1/3 of the way on the bow, pulls up to the center of the bow as the left hand guides it in front. Now we're blocking our front left leg. My left hand, as you can see, is actually open and is just holding that so my fingers are out of the way of any strike against that. Your elbow should be in also, so it's not sticking out here to get hit, as we would with any block to keep it in there. What we do next is what's called a figure 8. And let's talk about that a little bit. A figure 8 is a great warm-up exercise for you to get your fingers and wrists and elbows limbered up. What I want you to do is think just about the top of the bow. In a figure 8, we're going to take the top of that bow just in our being held by the right hand. This is the one time we're going to be taking the left hand off the bow. The top of the right bow goes down to our left side. It goes past our left foot. It goes up, back in front. It goes down again past our right foot and up again. It's making a big figure 8. This is just something you can take a little bit and practice. And what you do after a while is it starts to become more of a windmill. You notice my left hand is in my midline, held out of the way, but also in a protected position. So this is a figure 8. We'll be doing that twice in this form. I'm going to do it again from the side to make sure that it's clear to you. Again, we're just focusing on the top of the bow with my right hand. I take and move that top down to the left side and up in the back, down on the right side, up in the back, down on the left side, down on the right side. And as I get a little better, my hand moves less, it's the bow that moves more. Now, what are we doing here? This is a move just to protect yourself from movement of the attacker's bow. It's to clear the area out because it's sweeping that entire area. So, as we finish that thrust, we move that right foot back into a right back stance. The right hand moves up towards the center of the bow as we bring the bow in front of that leg again. Our elbow is in back of the bow for protection. Our left hand is open and flat in back against the pressure of the strike. Now what we're going to do is we're going to step forward with our right foot as we push that bow forward from the top with our left hand and start to spin it in a figure eight. So I'm going to do that slowly. I step forward into a powerful front stance. I push that forward. Now again, we're going down, and we're doing this. So we're going to do this about 3 times total. But just as you're practicing, just get out there and let it happen a little bit. And what we're going to do as we're bringing it around this side, as that top comes around and that back comes up, we're going to reach down and grab it with our left hand. Let me show you from this side. This is how we're going to stop that figure eight. So we're here, our elbow is tucked in. We step forward into a powerful front stance. We push that bow forward and we start doing that figure eight. We do this at least 3 times, and then as it's coming around, I reach down and just grab the bow here in the back. Come up into that crane stance and thrust. So one more time again. We begin here. Step forward into a power front stance. 1, 2, 3. Stop. Crane stance with the knee to the side. Step forward and thrust. Now we're in a narrow but still in a front stance. We're going to do a turnaround, a half turn, 180 degrees. And as we do that, our left foot just comes over a bit and we switch back into a front stance just by moving that left foot over a little bit. We now have the bow here, and we're going to use it by loosening up on the front, guiding that to the foot, to the knee of our attacker. Next, we step forward with the right foot, bringing it into a horse stance. And then we bring that right hand up. We're going to do the 7 sequence, but skipping the first part. So it's chin, head, overhead block, helicopter, chin, overhead. Let me do that from the other direction. So we've just turned around. Well, let's start here. We've just had our thrust. We've turned around We've hit the knee or the foot. Our right foot has stepped up into a horse stance, and we're skipping the first part of the 7 sequence and beginning with the chin strike, head strike, overhead block, helicopter, chin strike, head strike. We are going to be pulling that back, the bow, as we're ready for a thrust, and we're going into a crane stance, but we're moving 45 degrees, an eighth of a turn, and thrusting in that direction. So let me show you that to you from the other direction. So we're here, chin strike, head strike, overhead, helicopter, chin strike, head strike. Come into a crane stance, turn 45 degrees, and thrust. Next, we bring that right foot over another 45 degrees, and we go through the first 3 moves. Side of the head, chin strike, head strike. We step forward. We do side of the head strike. We then, turning on our left foot, we turn a quarter turn to our left into a horse stance and do a head strike. So let's do that from this direction. We begin here with the 6 of the 7 sequence: chin strike, head strike, overhead, helicopter, chin strike, head strike, turn 45 degrees, thrust, turn another 45 degrees, side of the head, chin, top of the head, step forward, side of the head, turn to the left, quarter turn into a horse stance, head strike. Okay, so we've gone through a bunch of the sequence here. Let me go through that with you one more time from the thrust at the beginning of the first move forward. We do a thrust, back stance, with the front leg block. We push it forward, 1, 2, 3, catch, crane stance, thrust, turn around into a front stance, hit the foot or the knee, step forward in to a horse stance, chin, head, overhead block, helicopter, chin, head, up into a crane stance, but turning 45 degrees, and thrust. Move your right foot across another 45 degrees, and we do the first 3 moves: side of the head, chin, top of the head. Step forward, side of the head. Turn left, quarter turn, head strike. We turn quarter turn again to the right, and we do side of the head, chin, and then let me show you what we do from there. So I'm going to do it in this direction because I think it will be easier to see at that point. So let's begin from that. We've just turned around, hit to the foot or the knee, horse stance, chin, head, overhead block, helicopter, chin, head, crane stance, thrust 45 degrees to your right, another 45 degrees to your right, side of the head, chin, top of the head, step forward, side of the head, turn to the left, quarter turn, top of the head, turn back to the right, quarter of a turn, side of the head, chin strike. Now from here, we're going to do another figure eight by pushing forward with that left hand to begin that figure eight turn. We're going to do at least 3 of these. Left hand is in the middle, and there, you can either do these in place or you can shuffle forward. After 3, you catch that back left again. You pull the leg back into a crane stance to the side, thrust. We go through the 7 strike sequence, side of the head, chin, top of the head, overhead block, helicopter, chin, head. And then we come back and we go back into an overhead block with the crane stance. That means the knee is pointing forward. Step forward into that powerful front stance. Head strike, chin strike. From here, we turn on our right foot. Our left foot moves around back into a powerful front stance. We turn around and we do a head strike. So let me show you that coming back at you. So we've done the figure eight, thrust, 7 sequence, crane stance overhead, head, chin, and now we hold it here. We turn on our right foot, our left foot comes around back, and we strike to the head. We do a drag step, left foot comes up, as our bow comes back, our right foot, as it's coming. We repeat the 7 sequence. Side of the head, chin, top of the head, overhead block, helicopter, chin strike, head strike. Now we're going to move into another crane stance, but we're going to do something a little different to end this form. And let me show that to you. I'm going to show you the hand moves first, as we'll be coming back into our typical crane stance to the side. But when we do, what we're going to do is we're going to let go of our right hand, which has been palm up. It's going to move to palm down. We're going to let go of our left hand then and turn the bow over. It's another head strike, and then thrust. So let me show that with you again. First release our right hand. It turns over till it's palm down. Release our left hand, flip the bow, as we then head strike, then pull it back and thrust. So with the crane stance, it looks like this. So it's you can look at this either as a head strike or knocking the weapon out of the hand. All right, and so let's go through that sequence one more time. So we have just turned around. We've done our head strike, drag step, thrust, 7 sequence. We do our thrust after we flip over the bow. Then we count 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. We come back to start position. Now we reverse to get back into our carry position. Exactly the reverse of how we got here. We first of all take our right hand and left hand and switch them. Our right hand comes out to the front. We want to make sure that our right hand is far enough out about a third of the way from the end. Our left hand comes down to our side, and the bow just simply comes in back of our right shoulder. And then we can bow out. So let me show you that again from the side. We're here. We cross our hands, bring the bow straight out, let go with our left hand. And our bow comes in back of our right shoulder, our feet come together, and then we bow. So we've gone through the individual moves. I know those are a lot of moves. It may seem like it's a lot of confusing sequencing of things, but it's really just several basic steps. The figure eights and the 7 sequence, just done in slightly different orders and connections. I hope this has been very helpful. A reminder that all of this is written down in detail on our website, willowmartialarts.com. Next, we're going to move on to showing the form in all 4 directions. The Northern Chi bow form from the front, as you would present it in competition. The Northern Chi bow form moving to the left. Northern Chi bow form to the right. Northern Chi in the back direction. Thank you, martial artists, for joining me today. Hope this has been helpful in getting you up to enjoying the Northern Chi bow form. Please, again, another reminder that all the detailed instructions in writing are at our website, willowmartialarts.com. Enjoy your martial arts.